Here are the basics of what we're trying to accomplish. A golf club is a long and heavy lever, and we move it from right to left. We're pulling it really with the left arm and pushing it with the right arm. And I say that because golf is not a symmetrical game. We're not playing croquet, which is a similar game, hitting a ball to a target with a stick or a mallet. But that's symmetrical, where the spine is vertical, the shoulders are level, each arm is a mirror of the other, and each does essentially the same movement. Golf is quite different. It's moving from right to left, and I sort of surmise that crabs would be better equipped to play golf than humans. So we have to deal with that in how we prepare and perform the swing. The club, as we pull on it at arm's length, particularly with the left arm, is pulling back on us. And if it wins the battle, the club will drop down, tuck in, open up, which is a term meaning that the club will twist to the right, and swing what is commonly termed as a benefit into out, which turns out to be less so, which is that the swing moves from 4 to 10 on a clock face if the target line is from 3 to 9. Now, the net result of all of those adjustments that are forced on one by the weight of the club is that the club wants to bury into the ground, very inefficient in golf, and do it with a club face that's looking to the right, traveling to the right. And this is where most people spend their time, in the right trees. I'm going to try to make that less a characteristic of your game. So the asymmetry of the game is greatly responsible for that tendency, and it's there that we start the process. If you stand, as I'm doing, facing you here, in your natural way, you'll notice that the hands are symmetrically shaped. They both have the thumbs turned in toward the legs slightly. Some people, particularly more slender people, might have the hands positioned where the palm is looking at the leg. Nobody stands with their palms looking forward, like this. So this is actually a resource. And if you watch champion golfers, most of whom are right-handed, you'll see many of them beginning the process of preparing to hit a golf shot by holding the club in their gloved hand, their less good hand, down by their side here. I think of Adam Scott, a great Australian golfer who quite evidently does it this way. But there are many others. And the benefit is this: we hang our hands with the thumbs turned in. This is actually a very good position for the particularly left hand. And so if you have the club between your feet, closer with the shorter clubs, farther away with the longer ones, sloping across the left leg, and you just let your arms hang to your side here by the side of your thigh, then if your hands, and confirm this, are identical to each other, just mirror images, you've got the hand in the right shape. Grip it in the fingers, not in the palm, and with the thumb slightly right of center, which is inevitable because you're adopting that shape that has this slightly turned in shape with the hand. Then, very importantly, when you pick up the club, don't let the hand and the arm turn this way, and they want to. When I show this to people, it's 3 or 4 attempts before they finally figure out how to lift up the club without letting this happen. Now, the disaster that comes with this reshaping is not actually about the club, because people see that and they just go ahead and change it so that it's looking at the target. The damage is actually what has happened with the arm, because as you pick it up and the elbow turns under and the hand and club to the left, then even if you fix the grip and the club face, the elbow is looking behind you in a shape that's unsustainable. You can't really get past your body with the arm in that shape. And so you have to then start rolling the arm to conclude the backswing. And a lot of those things I listed earlier are almost inevitable as a consequence. So when you pick up the club, don't let the club and arms turn this way. And as soon as you pick up the club, having confirmed that, attach the other hand. Now, first of all, about the left hand. You're gripping in such a way that the club could be cantilevered over the forefinger and under the heel of the hand, so that only those 2 points of contact are available, but in fact that's all that we need. And then you close the other fingers, put the thumb right of center, and you form a V with the forefinger and thumb with a stick on it, a Y really, that's pointing up over your right shoulder. That's very conventional and very beneficial for most people. So then when you've picked up the club, you attach the other hand. Now, it's the middle two fingers we want to hook around, and we do that butted up against the left forefinger, making sure we haven't let the club turn this way. And then the pocket that runs down the middle of the right palm is, for most people, rather conveniently shaped to exactly match the shape of the thumb. And you'll hook the two fingers around and then put that cavity over the top of that thumb so that there's no air getting in. Then with the little finger, you're going to wrap it into the groove between the first and second fingers of the left hand, what they call an overlapping grip. Some people interlock it. I always found it a little uncomfortable, but the overlap has been generally agreed to be the best one for 100 years. And then with the forefinger and thumb, again, they form a V, or as I call it, a Y, with a stick on it that's pointing up over the right shoulder. So the thumb is not on top of the club or gripped in a fist-like shape. It's actually rather more in the fingers. And the feeling will be that as you're swinging down, that you're pushing against the side of the club with the first joint of your forefinger as a way of applying force. And that's how you grip the club. And then we reflect on the fact that golf is essentially drawing a circle like a giant wagon wheel in the air. And so we need a fixed radius and a fixed center. Well, the fixed center is your neck. It's where the shoulders cross the spine. The fixed radius is principally the left arm and the club. Now, the club doesn't change lengths, but the arm quite easily might. And so we ensure that the arm is extended. And one more super important thing, which is what I call bias. Golf is not symmetrical. When you've gripped the club correctly and you've extended your arms, the next thing you'll do is to rotate, and it's really the shoulder you're changing. You'll rotate the left elbow so that the elbow is looking out toward the target. That is what I call bias. It doesn't look like a mirror image of the other arm. When you do that, the club will tend to drift over here in front of your right foot inadvertently. Well, that's rarely where the golf ball is. So then we rectify that by not changing this shape that we've adopted, where the body is slightly now tilted, shoulders tilted, left arm extended and biased, right one bent and low. But in fact, we just use the wrist to bring the club back to where the ball might be. With a shorter club, it's near the middle of the stance, with the longer ones farther away from you. So once you've rectified it, only then do you look at the club face, and if it happens to be twisted into a shape that you know is wrong, then you just wriggle it round in your fingers. You don't want to change any of these configurations that we've so painstakingly built, but that's when you adjust it. And what we're looking at is the bottom edge of the club and all the lines on the face being essentially perpendicular to the target line. Once you've adjusted that, we have to get to the ground. That's where the ball usually is. And it's very easy to just sort of sink at the knees and droop at the wrists, but we want to maintain these shapes. And it goes even farther. We want to maintain the shape in our torso, the way we would naturally stand, shoulders back and down, a slight concave quality to the lower back. And of course, golf has a rare thing in sports, which is a variety of different sized implements and almost an infinite array of slopes of ground upon which we're performing, rarely with two consecutive shots having the same features. And so we need a mechanism for getting the club to the ground for that slope and club, and also to do it having done a different club with the previous shot. So we tip over. And when you tip over, of course, the club goes down, but it also comes toward you. And when it gets to about the top of an imaginary ball, let's argue 2 inches above the ground, your legs are straight. Now, there's no sport played particularly well like that. So your legs are straight, and we need to get the last two inches down. What most people do when they then add their knee bend is to pop this way, and the club goes up and in this direction. Then they push down with their thumbs, and this is switching off the important muscles, the right ones, and creating a wrong configuration. The correct way to do it is to imagine that when you get to this point with the club 2 inches above the ground and the legs straight, that when you bend your knees, your head, the hands and the club head all drop vertically. And you'll notice it's very different muscles in the thighs particularly. And then you look at the club and you'll notice that the bottom of the club is probably, if the clubs fit you, not flat on the ground. It's actually toe up. Now that's actually correct, because there are things that go on in the golf swing which absorb that as you go through the ball. And it's actually a benefit to have the toe of the club slightly off the ground at address. So don't view that as an error. You tip and crouch, and then of course the ball's not here, it's over there. So you have to, maintaining these shapes, waddle forward to the ball, and put the feet apart. And then you lightly ground the club, which is the term given to touching lightly but not pressing or tapping down. And then you'll perform what I describe, which is traditionally described as a waggle. Now, the waggle is a sort of fidgety thing that people do in preparation to hit a golf shot. And it used to be this rather wristy performance. There was also a little associated movement with the feet. But in fact, the way that I prefer you to do it, because I think it brings extra benefit, is to imagine the club is a windshield wiper blade on a windshield. And you're just going to slowly clean a small portion of the window to here and then back again without hitting the ball. So you'll subtly adjust your feet and then go tick, tock. It confirms you're the right distance from the ball for that club on that slope. And it also shows you how to start the backswing. Very beneficial. Then we perform the swing. And the two principal things that are contributing to the motion are that we're turning the shoulders like a lid on a cylinder, if you imagine the body is the cylinder, and we're hinging the wrists, cocking the wrists. So once you've begun the swing with a replica of that waggle, as your hands and club are passing the right leg, you'll turn the shoulders so that the left shoulder is pointing to or even to the right of the ball. Now, it may mean, particularly with the longer clubs, that you see the ball less well with particularly your right eye, which unfortunately for most people is their dominant one, so it tends to make choices for us that are unhelpful. So you'll tolerate if you see the ball a little less well at this point in the swing, having turned correctly that much. And then the hinge of the wrist is where the wrists allow the club to approach the right shoulder. And as a consequence, the left arm is still extended and the right one is looking downwards and is somewhat bent. That is how the backswing is formed. Then we don't want to do what I listed earlier, which is a product of that tendency of the club to overcome us, drop it down, tuck it in, open the face and shoot to the right. We'd prefer something different. The bad news is that in to out has been recommended for 100 years. That notion of swinging from 4 to 10 on the clock face instead of 3 to 9. And as a consequence of that, people hit fat, weak, high and right. And it's bolstered by logic. My clients are smart people. They just inherently believe that the task of hitting a ball toward a target with this flat surface on the face of the club is to drive the ball up a ramp toward the target. Very smart, but keeps me employed. Because in fact, a better approach is that you imagine a spiral staircase. Your arms are on your hands and the club are on the handrail on the exterior of the spiral staircase, and you're pulling the club in the first half of the downswing with your legs to the left so that they slide down the handrail of that spiral staircase. And it's only as you get to the second half of the downswing that you let the club, as it were, shoot along the corridor toward the target after it's descended halfway down that spiral staircase. So it spirals down and then shoots toward the target. And that's when, in that last part, that the wrists straighten out, and we try to time it so that that happens just as you get to the ball. And then the follow-through is a natural occurring event where instead of the left shoulder being lower, now the right one is lower, as are your eyes tilted. And the right foot has pirouetted, although not immediately and not with a great deal of emphasis. And you're balanced in this position, watching, I hope, an excellent golf ball fly toward the target with maybe one eyebrow raised for the cameras.